much for coming, and I hope that we can have a nice exploratory discussion about what's going on in the world and why we talk about disruption these days, which was a topic that 20 years ago we didn't talk about at all. And I found my way into this topic totally by accident, because who wants to go study disruption? I mean, when you're in the first grade and somebody says you're disruptive, it's not exactly a good thing, right? So we had some changes that happened in the world. So I want to kind of get you to think differently about this by trying to reframe some of your thoughts about companies. So what I'd like you to think about is that you are being approached by an executive search firm, and they would like to put together an advisory panel for some companies, and they want to see if you're interested in any of these companies. Would you like to be on the technology advisory panel for Amazon or Sears? Amazon, right? That'd be a lot more fun. Well, what about Google or the Encyclopedia Britannica? Which would be more fun? Okay. Then what about Tesla or General Electric? See, the interesting thing to me when I started thinking about this problem was, my point of view was, what happened to the companies on the right? You know, Sears invented the idea of home shopping with the Sears and Roebuck catalog, right? They were the dominant retailer on the planet for some 70 years. What happened to the leadership there? What went wrong? How did they end up in bankruptcy court in early 2019? Were they just stupid? And by the way, how many of you used an encyclopedia when you were younger? Right? You had to write a report, you'd go look at it. What the heck happened to those? In fact, go to a library and try to find one today, and it'll be quite a challenge. So what happened to those companies? What did they do wrong? What did they miss? And then let's look at General Electric. Jack Welch, when he took over General Electric, created more value for his shareholders than any other chairman CEO in the history of our planet. By the year 2000, it's the most valuable publicly traded company in the world. And where is it now? Right? What's happened to General Electric? So the question here is, you have to start to say to yourself, were these people really stupid? And that's hard to say, because it's hard to believe that all of the leaders of these great companies could just collectively go stupid on us, right? So we need to start to figure out what's a better way to think about this problem. And to help us get there, I need 3 volunteers to come up here on the stage, and I promise I won't embarrass you, okay? Come on. I know that lunch is good, but there's got to be at least 3 of you that are finished. Come on up. 2 more. Come on, I got 1 white male, a little diversity wouldn't hurt. Come on. Okay, come on, good, thank you. 1 more, could I perhaps get a female to join me up here? Come on, there we go, thank you very much. So, thank you, my name's Adam.
Adam, I'm Jared.
Hi, Jared. And let me see, give me just a second here, all right. I'm Adam. Danny? Nice to meet you. And so you stand right there, Danny. Hi, and you are?
Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. I'm Adam. Nice to meet you. All right, so here's what we're going to do. If you knew I had a rope, would they have volunteered? Right? I want you to take a hold of that rope, put it in your right hand. I'd like you to take that and put it in your left hand. Great. And I need you to stand in the middle, okay? There you go. Very good. Now, I'd like you to put your right hand down at your waist and put your left hand up around your shoulder. And let's tighten that up just a little bit. Okay. This is the way we think about growth. We think about growth as a linear transition where we just kind of grow a little bit every year. And that seems like a simple, easy enough way to approach the problem if it's true. But what if it's not true? So I need you to make pistols out of your hands. Great. Put them under the rope. Now then, raise it up. There you go, right there. Spread your arms way far apart. There you go. Now, you lower your hand down, 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 down. Good. And you raise your arms up. There. This was the model that we got in the book Competitive Strategy. Remember that? A guy named Michael Porter came along. First guy to ever talk about strategy, talk about how we could be successful in business. And he said what happens is we have a period in business of growth. We do really well, and then we become General Motors. And then what we want to do is we want to protect our business, because eventually it may die, and this is a bad thing, and we don't really want to talk about that. We don't want to deal with it. So what we want to do is we want to protect this period, right? And so he creates the 5 forces model. Remember that? how to pay attention to your business, how to build a moat around your business. And we have the development of these companies like the Boston Consulting Group, Bain & Company, McKinsey & Company, who do things like growth share matrices, and they come out with things like scale curves. And they say the whole idea is to get big. This is really sloppy stuff down here with a lot of really weird competition. Kill all these guys off. Get up here till we have just a handful of small competitors, and then protect your position. So now just slowly bring your fingers together around your nose. What happened was that made all the sense in the world in the 1980s and early 90s. But by the time we get to the year 2000, what we discovered was all those companies that had gone through these consultants were not doing well. Remember General Motors? Where did it end up in the year 2010, right? What happened to that company? What happened to General Dynamics? What happened to these great companies that we kept talking about, that we had all these fancy consultants trying to help us figure out how they're going to protect that period of plateau? They were all failing. And suddenly the light bulb started to go off. What we realized was, for example, at General Electric, while Jack Welch is doing everything he possibly can to grow the company, he's creating value. But when a new CEO comes in and the new CEO says, you know, that was a lot of work and I'm going to slow things down and I'm going to rationalize the business and I'm going to sell some divisions, and he quit thinking about growth, the company started to die. So let's think about Sears. Sears had the catalog. Sears had the stores. Sears had Allstate insurance. Sears had the Discover credit card. They invented that. Right? Sears brought all of this wonderfulness to the family. And then what happened was a new CEO came in and said, too far flung, too diverse, and we're going to get rid of the insurance arm. Discover, that's a banking business. Let's let that go. I'm not sure that the catalog's making any money. Let's drop the catalog. And what do we see starts happening? They fail. So the first thing we learned as strategists in business was that you only have one choice. You have to grow. If you think you can be in business and you can defend and extend your base, you can protect yourself with your customers by doing a better job at the products you've always had, or you think you can rationalize yourself to a higher level of profitability with a lower revenue stream, that's just wrong. And I don't care who told you that it was possible. I don't care what business school wrote the book. I don't care what professor brought it to you. By the year 2012, we now know you are either growing or you are dying. And so the first rule I want you to understand about disruption is, if you feel like you're being disrupted because your revenues are stalling, you should be scared. You should be very, very, very scared. Now, back to the original position, please. Arm up, arm down, tighten, great. Now then, friend of mine, Clayton Christensen, starts taking a look and he says, well, if we weren't quite sure what was going on with growth, do we understand change? How does change happen? Well, this is how we thought about change happening. Remember the total quality programs? Make your product a little bit better, make your sales force a little bit better. If you make yourself a little bit better every quarter, time after time after time after time after time, things will just get really good at the end of the day, right? So anybody here ever go through a Six Sigma program? Come on. Some of you had to. I won't make you come up here, I promise. Right? So Six Sigma was all about quality, right? Now, I don't know if you remember this, but the company that invented Six Sigma was in the United States. And they're the ones who taught it to everybody else. And it wasn't General Electric, by the way. It was Motorola. And how did they do? Right? So we started taking a look at this whole issue about, is quality really the namesake, winner, take all kind of an approach to business that we thought it was? And we made a discovery. So now, I need you to take your right pistol and put it on top of the rope. There you go. Now then, take your hands and go like this. Great. Pull this hand down just a little bit more. There. What we learned was, by studying the last 100 years, is that this is what we're talking about with sustaining innovations, where you take something like total quality and you keep trying to get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better all the time. And it's good. It keeps you competitive in some ways, trying to make a little more money. And we get really fixated on running our business better. And this really, really works until something big happens. See? You didn't know you were the problem, did you? No. Something really serious happens in the marketplace, and all of a sudden the old technology doesn't matter. So we were all perfectly happy with a Razor phone. Remember that? Remember Razor phones? Until what happens? Research in Motion comes out with BlackBerry. Now we can text. Now we can do email. And in a matter of weeks, In weeks, we were wanting a crackberry. And we were totally addicted to that crackberry. And Research in Motion became BlackBerry, and everything looks really, really good until what? The iPhone comes out. Well, all those apps. Now I can do so much more than I could ever do before. It's a disruptive change. What we call punctuated equilibrium. And this was fascinating because if you think about it, this is something that's been going on in nature for a very long time. When we study species, what we saw was that the dinosaurs ruled the world for 800 million years. Then what happens? All it takes is one external event. Giant meteorite falls down from the sky. Boom! Lands on the Yucatan Peninsula. Suddenly the Earth's covered with steam, smoke. All the plants can't get any light. They die. It's cold. Dinosaurs were optimized to live in a nice warm environment with lots and lots of plants. Almost all of them were herbivores with nothing to eat. It's cold. In a matter of 10 years, they all die. Those little mammals that were running around eating roots and could hide underground, had a little bit of fur, they start to thrive. So what we saw was an external event wipes them out. So now then, let's think about how this might apply to us in business. Let me see if I got anything over here I could use. Oh, yeah. Anybody got one of these? Come on, if you got one of these, raise your hand. Come on, come on. 35 years. We spent 35 years building the industry, right, that you would go rent one of these. You started off, you rented the machine, you rented one of these, and then time went by, you got the machine, you still kept renting one of these, right? And that all worked really, really fine. We built an enormous 35-year industry around that until what happened? Streaming. In 16 months, not only had we thrown all of these away, we threw all these away too. Now, if you still have them in your closet, why? I give you permission to go home and throw them away. Because you're hanging on to something you will never, ever again need. Never. Never. You're never going to put this back in a machine and look at it again in the rest of your life. I know this because they quit making the machines 2 years ago, and you can't buy one. So you can't use this technology at all. And this technology, do you have a PC with a CD drive in it anymore? I kind of doubt it, right? Do you have a DVD player hooked up to your television anymore? Now that you stream down HBO and Netflix and all that other good stuff? I doubt it. But we tend to hang on to this stuff, right? We hang on to this old stuff. And then something new happens. And the customers run away. They run to the streaming. They run to the new thing. But what do? What did Blockbuster do? Blockbuster simply went out of business. Right? So that's the issue that we run into. You know what? Thank you very much. You've been a big help. I appreciate it. Everybody give them a round of applause, please. Thanks for helping. So what we're trying to do here is think about what causes these people to fail. Why did they not get there? And I want to go back to my old friends at the Encyclopedia Company. By the way, go try to find one of these. Trust me, just try to find one. Okay, what was their value proposition? Come on, what's the value proposition of an encyclopedia back in the day? Information, right? Information at your fingertips. Okay, so what would happen if somebody would ask you a question, you wanted an answer, you needed to get a quick answer, you didn't go need to write a master's thesis about it, you'd run and look it up in an encyclopedia, right? And that worked pretty good. So this need for information at your fingertips to give you quick answers to fairly common questions, has that need gone away? No. Is the value proposition of the Encyclopedia Company, has it gone away? No, I could contend that the value proposition today is greater than it was then. I mean, I can remember asking somebody a question, I was perfectly happy to get an answer tomorrow. If I ask a question of somebody today in the room, I'm expecting a Siri search and a Google search to happen instantaneously, and before I can catch a breath, somebody's going to give me an answer. So it's quite clear the value proposition was as strong as ever. But why didn't the Encyclopedia Britannica become Google? All right, now we're back to that old question. What happened to Sears? What happened to Encyclopedia Britannica? What did they do? and we found out a systematic problem that we had in business. And it was exacerbated and made worse by creating 300,000 MBAs a year. What we tend to do in business is optimize our value delivery system, which is how we deliver the value proposition. Once we come up with a hit and we can deliver the value proposition, we stick with that same value delivery system. The encyclopedia companies were bookbinders. The cost of pulp was the #1 item in their income statement. If the price of pulp goes up, they lost money. They became experts at all ways of printing and bookbinding, such that when new technologies like PCs came along, they would adopt a PC for page makeup. They would adopt special printers for making plates. They did everything they could to lower the cost and maximize the throughput of making a printed encyclopedia. And then when Microsoft came along with Encarta, which was the first encyclopedia on a CD-ROM, what did they do? Well, you might have thought they would react and gasp and go, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble." Their reaction was, "Well, wait a minute. 12-year-old kids use this in school libraries. How many 12-year-old kids know how to work a PC in 1984? How many libraries have a PC in 1984? By the way, if I'm going to look something up on Encarta, you may not remember this, but this was all pre-Ask Jeeves era. Anybody remember Ask Jeeves before Google? And what we would do is to get the information, remember Windows directory searches? Not exactly a user-friendly interface, right? So what happened was the encyclopedia companies took a look at Encarta and they said, you know what? Our customers aren't going to buy it because they're young, they don't have access to computers. It's really not important to us right now. Number two, the quality of the interface, finding the information is very difficult. Number three, when I actually read the content of Encarta, it doesn't really stand up to my Encyclopedia Britannica. So therefore, let's keep printing our encyclopedias. Maybe someday in the future, down the road, we'll have to worry about this, but not today. And they proceed to go through that exercise every year, year after year after year, until Google has made them completely obsolete. And this is what we started to recognize about the companies on the right. They weren't stupid, but they got trapped. They got trapped inside their value delivery system. They got so focused on how they were going to optimize the business as they knew it in the past that, in fact, they weren't able to think about what the business might look like in the future and where they were going to go with the next step. So we have to start to kind of rethink what we want to do about this and say, is there a new approach that we could get towards? And, you know, I think there probably is. The first thing is, have you ever heard somebody say, focus on your core? I hope you will take that and blow it up. Because focusing on your core business causes you to become very rigid. The more you focus on your core, the more you put blinders on your business, the less likely you are to see something in the external world that's going to make a big difference. So everything you heard about focus on your core, all that stuff that you might have heard from Jim Collins about good to great and built to last. By the way, if you read Jim Collins' Good to Great and Built to Last, I have a real simple exercise for you. Go get the books. Go to the appendix in the back, look at the 20 companies that he held up as the role model, and ask yourself if you want to own stock in any of those 40 companies, okay? This process optimizes you against historical factors, not future factors, so you don't want to do that. What you want to do is be very capable of adapting real time and understand your true value proposition. Nobody wanted a map, they wanted directions. When they could get directions, they didn't need a map. So after making maps for some 800 years, Rand McNally no longer has a reason to exist. Ask yourself, how many of you remember looking at a map when you were a kid, get one from the gas station maybe, take a look, figure out where you want to go? When was the last time you even opened a map, right? It was made obsolete. I like this one. This is the Apple Watch that I got talking about here. Apple Watch, most of you probably think of the Apple Watch as a failed product, because you think about how many iPhones that Apple has sold. In 2017, Apple sold more Apple Watches than the entire Swiss watch industry sold. In 2018, they beat it by 50%. Because we live in an Internet of Things world. Nobody wears a watch anymore to tell time. You wear a watch for other reasons, right? I want to count my steps. I want to get my texts. I want to know if I've received an email. All these different things that I would want to do with something that's convenient and on my arm. And increasingly, we're going to see what? More and more apps that are going to let us monitor our diabetes, or our sugar, I should say, our sugar in our blood, monitor our heart rate, monitor our breathing rates, make sure that we're taking our medicines. All of these kinds of things are becoming the direction of the future, such that then what good is a watch? Why would you want a watch? Perhaps there are occasions when, as a piece of jewelry, it makes sense. But it's only a piece of jewelry now. The fact that you could have a complex watch, as they call them, that does 42 different functions is really like a who cares, right? Who cares? What does it matter? So what we want to do is we have to learn to be very future-oriented. We have to quit planning from the past and plan for the future. We have to obsess about how we add value to customers. We have to encourage disruption in our own organizations. Don't just let disruption happen to you. Be the one who's the disruptor and experiment with white space. So the first one of these I want to talk about is let's talk about what it means to plan for the future, okay? So, a couple things here. What have I got? Yeah. This box, I want you to imagine this box is full of $100,000 bills. This is Walmart's value in the spring of 2016, 3 years ago. I want to pick this time because that was the time before they had bought Jet and before Amazon had bought Whole Foods. This is their asset base, about $220 billion. This is their market value, $220 billion. The marketplace is saying to Walmart, your management is worth zero. You could liquidate the assets of the company and get as much money as we're willing to give you for running the world's largest traditional retailer. If you're running this company, you should be pretty upset because your job is in high jeopardy. Why should anybody keep running Walmart if I'm not getting a premium? Shut it down, sell the assets, give me the money, let me put it somewhere where I can make some money. We're not going to give you any value, Walmart, because you're not growing. You're stuck out there with your stores, your distribution centers, and all that traditional trucking and everything else you have. And yeah, that's big, but it's not growing. It's going nowhere. So then we could take a little comparison here. These are the assets of Amazon. Same time. 10% of what these guys have. Less than $30 billion of assets. That's the entire asset base of Amazon, okay? Pretty clear. That same year, that same time, market cap for Amazon. Which business do you want to be in? You want to raise $220 billion of assets and somebody can tell you it's worth $220 billion? Or would you like to have $30 billion of assets and somebody tell you it's worth $330 billion? Worth more than these guys. Why is this worth so much? Why is everybody so excited? Because they're for the future. It's all about where you're going. It's where you headed. Where are these guys headed? Right? And then where are these guys headed? These guys are headed to the future. They're e-commerce guys. They have 40% of the entire e-commerce marketplace. They're doing everything they can to be great in the e-commerce world, right? So they get a much, much higher valuation for that. Now, we fast forward to 2009. Walmart buys Jet. Assets go up a little bit, okay? Add about $30 billion, $40 billion of assets. And the market says, okay, we'll give you that. Tiny little bit more than what you got in assets now, but not much. Not much. We don't have a whole lot of faith that you're going to become an e-commerce giant, to be honest with you. Because everything you do at Walmart really doesn't look like that's where you're headed. You're still trying to defend and extend and protect that same old business that you've had for such a very, very, very long time. So what does the competition do? Well, we get Amazon, and they go buy Whole Foods. That's a big number. All of a sudden, we've got $100 billion of assets. Actually, 160. Much bigger number. But the marketplace says, why did you buy Whole Foods? And everybody starts figuring out that they're going to use these as local distribution centers. You're going to be able to order online, pick up at the Whole Foods. You'll be able to order stuff and get the Whole Foods. It'll solve the last mile problem. They're going to take Whole Foods and reorganize the company, get it in a different direction, allow it to do more things, right? This is the direction we're headed with Whole Foods. They said, okay, I don't know what happened to my slides, but that doesn't matter. So what does the marketplace do? You got this one. You see it coming, right, folks? You know what this is going to be, right? That's the value now of Amazon. Now, this is real. This is as of last week, these numbers, okay? This isn't the peak 6 months ago. 3 times, $750 billion valuation compared to $250 billion valuation for Walmart. Which one do you want to be, right? What happens? They are investing everything in the future. They do everything they can to develop and create the future. They are not trying to hang on to the past. Now, you tell me, Adam, I'm not a publicly traded company. I don't deal with that. No, but you recruit. If I go down to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I look at this, somebody sets up 2 booths. One of them says we're recruiting for Walmart. The other one says we're recruiting for Amazon. Who's got the line? You need to raise a little money from your banker. Which one's would you rather be? Would you rather be in there trying to explain how you need the money to defend and extend your existing business, or you tell a story like Amazon? Which one's the banker going to get behind? Think about the fact that you want to talk to a supplier about developing a new product. Which one is the supplier going to get behind? Think about you want a little bit extra money to double up the size of your headquarters. What happened when Amazon said they were going to double up the size of their headquarters? How did the communities react? It's not just about your market cap in terms of a publicly traded company, which I think this does a good way of sinking into your head. It should tell you that you have to be future-oriented. You really have to be very future-oriented when you're doing your planning. Plan for the future, not from the past. And simultaneously, make sure you know your value proposition. We know that Netflix whipped Blockbuster. Remember that? And so, as Blockbuster failed, the value of Netflix went way up. But then there was like, what's going to be Act 2? Wall Street said, your primary core skill set is moving boxes. You move videos around. You're the #1 customer of the Postal Service, UPS, and FedEx. You're the largest. At the time, they were larger with those 3 distribution companies than even Amazon. They said, you now should take your core skill set and you should invest in that to sell general merchandise. This is where I hand it to the leadership. They said, you know what? We didn't go down that road. We didn't start down that road, and it wasn't what we learned how to be good at. We understand entertainment. Our value proposition was delivering entertainment. Anybody can go out there and deliver boxes. We figured that out. Amazon's figured that out. A bunch of other people are going to figure that one out. We need to be the world's best at delivering value, and that's streaming. And they took 100% of all the money they had and invested it in streaming. And as you can see on this slide, the value of the company deteriorated because the investor base, the analysts, said, wait a minute, you're not a tech company. What do you know about that new market? And the leadership team said, it's not what we know, it's what we have to know, and so that's where we're headed because we have to go there. We have to win at streaming or we lose our value proposition. They literally, in 9 months, let go all of those experts in how to move boxes. They got on the phone and called Amazon, called Target, called these companies up and said, we have some of the world's smartest people moving boxes. You should hire them because we're hiring tech people now. Totally changed the core of the company. Totally changed. And of course, we all know what happened. Streaming came in, they timed it right, they knew the technology was coming along, they won the streaming game. And what's happening now? Next year, they're going to be the largest producer of television programs on the planet, right? Again, 4 years ago, what did they know about making programming? Now, they're going to be bigger than NBC, ABC, and CBS combined at original program creation. So you have to be planning for the future, and you have to be fulfilling your value proposition. Don't fall back into, well, I know what I'm really good at. I'm good at moving boxes around. Let me figure out one way to move boxes around. No, that's not where it's at, because that'll set you up for failure. That's where you become a Sears. That's how you become a GE. Instead, you have to say, where's the world going and how do I position myself so I can get out there in that world and be successful at it? So, you got to obsess about competition. I remember a decade ago, remember when we used to read newspapers? Remember that? And so I was working with the Chicago Tribune, and I was in a meeting with the senior leadership team, and they had just paid the world's highest price for a newspaper buying the Los Angeles Times, and they were a bit worried. And I said, hey, what do you guys think of Craigslist? And the CEO of the Chicago Tribune said, Craigslist? That's for hookers. The female CFO of the company looked at him and said, how'd you know that? I thought that was very clever of her. But with one statement, he ignored the market shift. Instead of elaborating and developing and seeing what was going on out in that world of all those people online selling stuff, he said, look, nobody's going to quit doing classified advertising. If you're going to sell a car and you're in Chicago, you're going to put it in Chicago Tribune. If you're going to get an employee, you're going to put the help wanted ad in the Los Angeles Times. You're not going to go to these rinky-dinky little, nothing little companies like Craigslist. That's never going to happen. 6 months later, the classified ad business was effectively dead. Classified ads were 40% of newspapers' revenue, 60% of their profits. The rest of the profits came from what we called inserts. Remember when you would get on Friday a movie insert? Wednesday was the garden insert. Saturday was the auto insert. That was the other 40% of the profits. So now if you wonder why there are no more newspapers, it's an impossible business model. Simply can't work. Can't work at all. Was it easy enough to see? Yes, as long as you're willing to open your eyes and see it. And that's where I congratulate Facebook. For any of you who think Facebook's in big trouble, I encourage you to go download my ebook, Facebook, The Making of a Great Company. Facebook became Facebook. 6 months after it goes public, it's got the lift problem. Stock price goes down, not up. They make the announcement they're going to buy Instagram for $12 billion. No revenues, 10 employees, $12 billion. Why? Because the future's pictures. The future is pictures. And we don't have time to screw around trying to invent that on our own, and we're not going to wait for somebody else to show us its pictures. We know it's pictures. We know we got to go there, so we're buying it. 2 more years go by, and they say, you know what? People are leaving our platform to do texting. People are leaving our platform to do other things. We need over-the-top technology, or we're not going to be able to survive. Okay, that's no problem. $19 billion will do it. That'll get us a company with about 60 employees and $15 million of revenue. $15 million in revenue. We're going to pay $19 billion for it. This is the real world today. The real world is you have to see the future. You have to understand the trends. You have to plan for those trends, and you have got to put your money there. You have got to take those bets. Because if you don't take those bets, you're going to end up like GE. GE let other people take the bets, thought they could wait, get around to it later. After all, hey, we're GE. If GE can't wait, what about you? How long can you wait before you take your bets when things start to change in your marketplace? Now, you may not be in a position that you're going to have to bet $1 billion, okay? I get that. I get that. But are you ready to make the big bet? Because if you're not, you maybe want to be thinking about selling the business. Because this is the world we live in today. The world where you have to do your planning for the future. You have to understand these trends, you have to understand these small competitors, and then you have to take your bet. So you have to do that in a way to be disruptive. Amazon didn't come out of nowhere. We watched what they did. Back in a time when retail was location, 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 buyers getting all the right merchandise, and then putting it on the store shelf effectively, they eliminated that business model. You cannot be the low-cost retailer if you have to have a store, inventory, and salespeople. It's impossible. These guys don't have any of that. But that wasn't good enough. They said, well, wait a minute. If we're going to sell online, maybe we should be the world's best at understanding how to display products. We'll know that you're on an iPhone. We'll know that you're on a Samsung phone. We'll deliver that up to you. We will build the world's best technology to connect you up. If our suppliers won't give us the technology so we can have ebooks, by golly, we'll do it ourselves. We'll launch our own ebook series. We'll launch our own ebook product so people can read it. We can't wait. This is the attitude you have to have today. You can't wait. Get in the market, make it happen. You have no choice, because if you wait around, you're going to lose the market. Will you make mistakes? Absolutely. Does that mean you stop? No. Does that mean you don't invest? No. The one thing I can tell you about sitting out here at these tables, you will not win if you don't sit down at the table. Now, you may not like these odds, but in your business, you should know the odds. You should know the competition. You should know the technology. You should be able to stack the odds in your favor. And then you've got to take the bet. You got to say, hey, maybe what we ought to do is invest in drones. Maybe what we ought to do, even though our whole history has been avoiding assets, is we go buy a grocery store chain so that we can try to solve the last mile problem. And we literally 5x our asset base in one transaction, right? There are reasons we hold these companies up now as role models. And even if you've heard the FANG stocks have been beaten up lately, the reality is they are the growth engines. And as growth engines, they're the one creating the most value. So the last thing is you have to make these investments. And I like the story of Sir Richard Branson. He started off in business selling records by mail order. Now, if you want to have fun, try to explain to a 14-year-old the concept of a mail order record business, where you tell her that they printed a document which was then sent to you in the mail, which you then looked at that described the music that you'd never heard before, unless you maybe caught some of it on the radio. You then checked the box, wrote out a check on paper, put all that back in an envelope, mailed it to somebody on the hope that 2 weeks later you would get a vinyl record in your house. After you finish that statement and they're totally bewildered because they don't know what a vinyl record is, they don't know what a check is, they can't understand why you do anything with the mail, then you can proceed to talk about the future, right? But that's where he started. And he was very, very successful at it. He eventually moved from that. He opened a couple of retail stores. And he opened a giant retail store in Piccadilly Circus. It was the largest record store ever. It was kind of famous because he would get the Beatles and he would get Elton John and people to come by the store once in a while. And that was really cool. You know what his next enterprise was? He opened an international airline. He was flying back and forth between New York and London, and he realized, he's opened a store in Manhattan, he realized that basically the only person serving the market was British Airways. And it really wasn't cool to fly British Airways. And he said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And he takes a look, and hey, there was this guy that had opened an international airline, but he just didn't price it right, Freddie Laker. He went bankrupt and left a few hundred people stuck in London and, a few thousand people stuck in London with no way to get home. But it was, hey, a pretty good indicator that people want to fly. Then they need an alternative. They needed a way to do it, so he opens Virgin Atlantic. Now think about that. No college degree. His whole career is built on selling records, and his next business venture is an international airline. I've had an opportunity to talk to Richard Branson a couple of times, and I asked him, I say, so Richard, Sir Richard, people talk about having a core. If you have a core at Virgin, what's your core? He said, if we have a core, it's knowing how to start new businesses. It's knowing how to go out and invest in the future. We believe in investing in things, and then as they get big, we sell them, and we go do something new. He's only made himself a multi-billionaire doing that in about 15 years, so I don't know if you'd think of him as a role model, but he certainly is for me. But the best thing is, come on, that's just some of the businesses in the Virgin Empire, right? He's not just Virgin Atlantic. He's not just Virgin Records and Virgin Vinyl and Virgin Stores. These are just some of the businesses that he's gotten into. Now, am I telling you that you need to go off and invest in things you don't know anything about? No, I'm not telling you you have to do that. But what I am telling you is that you would be better off to put your money into growth business opportunities you know nothing about than to keep putting money into a business that's stagnating, to keep putting money in a technology that's last year's technology, to keep putting something into a project that's so 1990s or so 2000. Because you have to grow. Back to where I started, you have to grow. You have no choice but to grow. You have to find a way to get out of that lock-in to the box of the business you run today and find those opportunities to do the next thing. There's this old phrase, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And so people are like, oh, great, let me jump out and go over, like I'm selling pretty good now, I'll do the next product nearby. Well, the problem with that is somebody just might shatter your marketplace. And that whole idea of just, well, I'm just going to take a nice, safe little step to the next thing, just really isn't nearly as safe as you think it was. It feels safe because you know the business, you know the products, you know the technology, you know how you've run your business for the last 20 years, so it feels safe. It feels low risk, but in fact, it's terribly risky. Because remember, what's going to change your world is not something you see coming. It's going to be an external event, right? It's going to be that meteorite that falls out of the sky. It's going to be Microsoft figuring out that it can make an encyclopedia on a CD-ROM. Your business could die just because you're collateral damage of somebody else's new technology. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to invest in the future. So invest for the future, not from the past. That's the first thing. Focus externally, not yourself. Do your planning, do your thinking, figure out what you want to do next by looking at the world, not looking at what you're good at. I have clients that call me up all the time and they want some help because I do trend analysis and I'll look for problems, I'll say threat assessments and opportunity assessments. And the first thing I always want to do is spend a day describing their business to me. And I always say, why? You know your business. You think in one day I could become an expert on your business like you are? You got that. But what you don't have is that look at the external world. That's where you're going to get in trouble. How are you getting those external data? How are you bringing in stuff that's not normal to the running of your business every day? How are you getting those extra insights into what's happening? Because you have to be disruptive. You have to. To continue to invest in sustaining innovation, remember, eventually there'll be a punctuated equilibrium. And if you're not ready for it, you won't make it to the other side. You'll get stuck. And so then you have to make sure you're investing in these projects like Richard Branson. Get out there, figure out how to get into projects where there's growth opportunities, and that's the way you're going to take your business forward. Okay? It's been a pleasure talking with you all day. Again, thank you very much for coming to my hometown of Las Vegas. I hope you have a great time here, and enjoy the Channel Partners Conference and Expo. Thank you.